So for anyone who is like curious and wanted to look at them themselves while we're going over it here, hopefully that's big enough for y'all to like read. This is the one that we're looking at right now, which is the 30.90 quality of, ooh, Beastlands. Okay, let's enter this event, y'all. Ooh, morale meter. Okay, there's some like factions going on. I guess it's like beasts versus bugs. Can I be on the beast side? Do I get to choose? So there you go for all our Stream Raiders aficionados. Go ahead and start placing your units there. You got 30 minutes for our first battle. Okay. So, the TLDR, and if you want to watch the video, honestly, it's like a 4-minute video, so it's pretty quick. But the TLDR, I'm going to skip all of this because, I mean, read it if you want, but we care about this stuff. Is that this is a quality of life update. That's main focus is to address some early game new player issues, and also we'll be getting some augments, and also there's some dojo and decoration tweaks to make it both more accessible for more casual players. So the quick and dirty, we have the Forma changes incoming. We have the new Warframe augments, and then we have the early player Tenno guide and the dojo decoration changes. And then both of those are on other, we can get more info from those there. So we'll start with the augments, honestly, because that's like the fastest part. So there's going to be 4 new augments. There's 2 for Zaku, and honestly, they're both really cool. So I'm really biased here because Zaku and Lavos are 2 of my favorite frames. So I'm really excited about these. I could care less about Trinity, I'm sorry. Okay, actually though. Anyway, so there's 2 for Zaku, 1 for Lavos, and 1 for Tren. Lavos is for the first ability, Ophidian Bite. It honestly reminds me kind of Atlas's raw passive one, which increases your damage and range with your punches. Except this one is affecting cooldown, since Lavos is a warframe that doesn't use energy and instead runs on a cooldown system. So right now, without this augment, Lavos has 1 ability that is able to reduce cooldowns, which personally is enough in most situations, and especially if you're on Steel Path. But I can definitely see where having a second option to lower cooldowns on abilities would be super handy, especially on the faster paced missions, less locked missions, and you want to be able to use that for more often, which is what I think this augment is going to specifically affect the most. And that is a more mobile playstyles, and also Steel Path playstyles that want to have a catalyze up way more frequently. That's what I think is going to be most affected by this. And so what it is that it will change to reduce cooldowns of all abilities by some to-be-determined number of seconds for hitting a cluster of to-be-determined number of enemies, while also adding an ability range buff for Ophidian Bite. So it'll make it easier to hit more targets, and if you hit the base number of targets, then you'll be able to get a cooldown reduction on top of your 3, which is your Transmutation Probe. Which is, I think, going to be where the synergy gets kind of interesting, and I think could be really fun for specifically Steel Path type missions, which is kind of where I'm curious about using it. It could theoretically also open up some Helminthing options, but still, Lavos is a frame that doesn't like Helminth, in my opinion. It's just, until they make it so that you can still get the base element from that ability, it's just kind of gross. So I think that's really where it's going to be most beneficial, in making yourself more mobile, so you can get more abilities off in a timely fashion without relying solely on Transmutation Probe. And B, for more aggressive Catalyze styled builds, because Catalyze is the only one that has a kind of long cooldown, even with just Transmutation Probe. You kind of can cast it like once every like 20-ish seconds, depending on how effectively you're utilizing your 3 and how much enemy density you have. So I think that's where it's going to be the most interesting. Then we have Zaku's, which is 1 for aggressive lock. This first one I don't really care about. And then the 1 for the Lost I think is super interesting. So aggressive lock, the stolen weapons will deal damage and heal Zaku. I think that's cool. I don't really think that Zaku needs it. I think Zaku has plenty of survivability between the passive and shield gating, honestly. Like, this is kind of a nice little thing, but I also feel like it won't matter in the long run. The Lost one, though, I think is super cool. Casting a Lost ability increases the power strength of the Lost by a certain percentage and will stack. Casting the same ability twice in a row resets the bonus. This, I think, is super interesting. It is promoting more use of the Lost as an ability, since that tends to be the ability that most people are kind of meh about, though I love this ability. But I also find it really interesting in terms of Deny, because Deny is admittedly the one part of the Lost that I use the least, and theoretically, it just says that you can't use the same one twice. If you switch between utilizing Accuse and Gaze, I would assume that you could potentially get a pretty high increasing buff and potentially make some really, really interesting damage with Deny in conjunction with Grasp of Lock, because Grasp of Lock also synergizes with Deny, as it'll give a damage multiplication based on the amount of weapons you've created. So that plus that buff could actually make Deny maybe a little bit more formidable, but we'll see. Then we have Trinity's Blessing Augment, which is going to gain range, primary, secondary weapon, critical chance for each % of heal on your allies, which pretty much is just you heal and you get more crit chance to your guns, so she can be more aggressive, which is honestly kind of terrifying. Because she's already very potent, because she pretty much never dies. And she can armor strip if you use an augment. And if you add this on as well, plus galvanized mods, like, I could see her being kind of a weapon monster with this. On refresh, it adds up a new value and refreshes the timer. So, obviously it won't be a consistent buff, but still, the fact that this is even a thing is frankly a little terrifying. Like, are we gonna see a return of DPS trend? I don't think it's gonna be as bad as Kastana's trend, but that was like, I'm kind of curious to see how this like shifts things with Trinity, if she'll get more play with this. Howdy Smugs. Hello Tora. Was Gucci? Was Gucci? Okay, so those were the augment changes. And before we switch over, we'll just like quickly touch on this part right here. 1, prepare for the new war. Own a Necromac and a Railjack. We're making it easier to do this soon, and you've got time. Spread the word. This is the new war, means battle is on. Gear up. So y'all know, we can pretty much guarantee, like, I can pretty much tell you all the quests that we are going to need for the new war, based on their forum post that they posted for the new war. But here is a pretty explicit, you'll need your Necromac and Railjack. Also, oopsie daisies. Can you not have me go all the way down? That is bad. Also, it was mentioned in the video, they're making it easier to grind things, so they're making the grind less grindy, so you can get your first Railjack, get your first amp, get your first Necromac faster. Cheers. Okay, now we have the meaty stuff with this update, which is not just augmentation. Howdy Shay. Yeah. Gucci is also, I don't own any Gucci. So I could probably find some It'd be like old, but you know, sometimes that's a good thing. Okay, so the Tenno guide. The TLDR of this is that it's going to tell you what you should be doing next. So the video touches on it a little, but it also says kind of right here. This kind of explains it. You're getting a amp recipe reduction, so the amount of stuff you need is going to be reduced. Reduced cost for refined ore gem blueprints in the plains of Eidolon and Orb Valis, so those will be less expensive to build as well. And there's going to be some changes to Necromac acquisition. There will be more specifics as we get further down, but the Necromac acquisition, there will be increased drop rates for parts, I believe. And I'm not sure about the other requisition changes. So, also, reduce crafting times for the Raising Tides quest for anyone who is curious about getting the Railjack and are still like, but it takes so long. That's going to be lowered. So, introducing the Tenno guide. The Tenno guide is, again, going to be this UI notification. You can opt in or out of it in the HUD, and it will help guide new players through the start of the game after you complete Vor's Prize, and so that you're less like, I don't know what I should be doing, you know, because that's a big thing that happens in Warframe. I would know as a content creator who does Tenno training days like this that one of the most frequent questions I get is, hi, I just started the game and I don't know what I'm doing. The star chart is here. So I love that this is being implemented. Obviously, I'm not entirely sure if like all the new things that will be implemented. I still think that we could get a little bit more tutorial-based things to explain like arsenals a bit more deeply, but this is a great start, and I love that we are getting this implemented. So hopefully this will help out the new players a lot more. So then, that's literally all it is. So then we have Heat Sword crafting requirement changes. Excuse me, sorry. And this is, we're changing the crafting requirement of the Heat Sword to require Neuroid rather than Neural Sensor. Originally, this was meant to incentivize players to explore new nodes, but it's outdated in the current state of the game. This change is smaller than most, but meaningful to new players looking to upgrade their melee early on. So part of the changes to crafting and stuff to make it less grindy is to make some of the more early game stuff less, like, require less materials that are not going to be on those starting areas for players. So it should make more weapons and things accessible without needing taxiing and etc., which I think is great. Then we have the reduced crafting times for the Rising Tide quest. In March 2021, we made Railjack more accessible by reducing the crafting resources and the time it took to build your Railjack. Soon, we'll be reducing the crafting times again from 1 hour to 1 minute per part. Well, this explains how they're planning to finish the Rising Tide quest in a single stream. I was wondering about that. As Railjack becomes a larger requirement, we hope this change will allow new players to swiftly complete Rising Tide and prepare the Railjack for future fights. Okay, I'm sorry. I need a timeout. I need a timeout because you know why I'm upset? You know why? Y'all out here like, oh, why was it an hour to start with? You know how long it took for the starter players like me? 1 day. No, it wasn't a day. It was 12 hours per each part. I could only complete 2 parts a day. So the fact that it's being reduced from 12 hours to 1 minute has me a little upset. I mean, like, great. I'm happy for y'all. I'm happy for y'all. But I'm also like, wine mom, give me my vodka. Thank you, DE. But also, ow. Ow. No, same. I'm like, great, but also I'm like, oh, okay. Amp recipe reductions. This change is twofold. Reduced crafting costs for amp parts and reduced standing cost for purchasing parts. Our goal here is to make constructing an amp more appealing to new players by optimizing progression. Great! That's great. You know, that's fantastic. I love that. This is rooted I feel like I sound sarcastic, but no, I'm not. I'm like, that's great, because one of the biggest hold and barrier to Eidolon hunting for players is the amp creation, because the amp is the thing that will take the most time to come online. And without a solid amp, or okay, really, without an amp that's not a moat amp, then you're just spending so long just not doing it. This is rooted firmly in the role of upgrading your amp's plays and performing in the main quest, like the sacrifice, as well as engaging in focus tree related content. Did we have to use an amp for the sacrifice? I honestly don't remember. So these are all different parts, and I'm not reading all of them. If you care, you can look at it specifically, but as you can see, things are going from blank to blank to blank to blank, and it's all less. So that's great. Wonderful. Fantastic. We love this. I'm not going through them all. You get the point. And oh, this is important to know. Any crafting component that is not noted is keeping its current cost. So if it's not noted, then you are out of luck on that one.
Reduced costs for refined ore gem blueprint in the plains of Eidolon. To accompany all changes to amp crafting, the standing costs of blueprints for refined ores and gems for you fancy people from the plains of Eidolon have been adjusted.
Okay. So again, we're just seeing reductions in price. So things are easier for you to grab and don't cost as much standing. So it's just less grindy overall, less bounties, less of a grind there. And then we have Necromac acquisition changes, which we touched on a little bit in the beginning.
Necromacs have started to play a vital role within the system, from being a part of the Railjack experience to a great tool in our open worlds. While their firepower provides an advantage, the time and resource investment required to obtain one has shown to be a deterrent to new play. This is true, but you know what else is a deterrent? You know what else is a deterrent? The fucking 5 Forma. And the fact that you have 2 options of leveling these suckers. Either you sit in a Railjack mission, probably a survival, because, I mean, I guess you could do a defense, but survival or Orphex Venom, or you sit in an open world and do bounties for hours and hours. It's not fun. I'm sorry. I don't enjoy that. So, anyway, as the new war approaches, we aim to alleviate that initial friction. I'm glad you acknowledge that it's the initial friction, because there's certainly more friction involved. Yeah, it's 5 Forma, and it's not like 5 Forma on a Tinnet weapon, because we can just go to Sanctuary Onslaught, or ESO, or Adaro or something, and that's fine. Like, I mean, it's tedious, but that's fine. This takes so long. Enemy Necromacs now have a 50% chance to drop a Necromac part across the board, evenly distributed. The battle required for a newer player to defeat an enemy Necromac is neither easy nor quick. This increased chance of getting a Necromac part helps to reduce the time investment needed in order to gather the mandatory parts to build your first Necromac. So again, it's just making it easier for newer players to not have to rely on like taxis and outside help to help get these parts for people. Additionally, we've halved most of the mining, fishing, parts costs for crafting the Void Rig, as this is the first Necromac players see in the Heart of Deimos quest, so you want to make acquiring it a little easier, so we're now officially saying the Void Rig is the first. I mean, it is. Like, it was the first one. Bone Widow is second. Bone Widow has been left as a longer-term goal. So, again, just reduce costs. Y'all can read them. Pretty much everything's just been halved. No, that's literally what it is. Yeah, casing is just halved. They're all just halved. So just again, less investment. Next up are the changes for the Howl of the Kubrow Crest. For new players, we are changing the Kubrow egg drop rate to be 100% from the first Kubrow den. Honestly, that's great. This change will only affect new 10-0 playing the quest for the first time and does not affect Kubrow egg drop rates outside of the quest. We're also shortening the survival mission within the quest from 10 minutes to 5. Okay. Cool. Again, these changes are rooted in our goals to have our 10-0 prepare for future battles without being hung up on outdated progression. So, like, I guess, like, as a quick, I'm glad for these changes. These changes are great. I think we would all be in agreement that the progression has needed some help, and accessibility to some of these resources has been a more difficult and/or confusing experience for a lot of new players. But I do also 100% believe that the other half of this equation is the fact that the new war is coming out soon, and they're trying to make as many people able to get to it and play it when it releases as possible, because obviously everyone's been chomping at the bit for it. So that there's definitely like a secondary reason for making sure that everyone can at least have the Void Rig by the time the update comes out, which we'll get to the new war forum post in like just a sec. But like when it comes to the Void Rig ones, like having the costs is great. It just guarantees that people will have one. Increasing the drop rates, great. It just guarantees that you'll have at least one. And have the time to level it as well. By the way, for anyone who is leveling a Necromac still and is like, where should I go? Railjack. Just do Railjack. Do Railjack and either do Survival or Fix Venom. Trust me, it's faster than doing open worlds. I'm obviously, so yeah, like, finish your quests. Do them. Do them. I really like the Heart of Deimos quest, by the way. But if you are curious about the prereqs for that quest, if you go to your codex, you can see exactly what those prereqs are by just hovering over it. Which, again, the codex is a great resource. It's just, like, I think forgotten a lot of times. But they will give you a base loadout of, like, what things you need to be doing before. Additional new player experience changes. Remove Ceres to Jupiter task of defeating a prosecutor to reduce initial friction. You get you on your way faster. Prosecutors could take a long time to spawn if you are unlucky. Increase the window of time where you can deal damage to the Vahek propaganda drone during his boss fight from 8 seconds to 10. Newer players who attempted the Vahek boss fight right when it was available to them found this phase more difficult than it really needed to be. Updated the new strange objective for the synthesis target to make it less confusing. It now reads Sanctuary target as opposed to a specific enemy type, which could come across confusing. Overall, you can expect to see these changes on our November 11th update on all platforms. Our vision is to make it less intimidating for new players to play Warframe and shorten that gap for new players to reach new content. We'll be listening on ways to tweak what we are changing, so if you have any feedback that aligns with our vision, then let us know below. So that's like the meat of it, and then there's just some quick dojo stuff, which really amounts to, like I said earlier, there's going to be a basic mode for decorating and an advanced mode for decorating. The advanced mode is the current mode. The basic mode is just going to be like you place stuff and you're done. Yeah, so like it says here, basic mode only offers essential tools: place, move, remove, duplicate, rotate, and scale. Oh, that's another thing. They're adding scale, so we can make big fluffs in domestic drones. And then the advanced mode is going to have, like, everything. So, you know, for people who struggle like me, I'll probably be a basic person, because all I want is to place the damn thing. And there is going to be a UI design overhaul. So I guess this is what it's going to look like. And that's... And okay, and then there's some controller key binding changes. If you want to look at that, live your best life. I don't care. Sorry. So instead of the stagnant image, the personal decoration menu will show a 3D decoration preview that allows decorators to see all sides of decorations before placing them. Right now, this feature is only available for personal decorations. All decorations are now scalable. In the past, only dojo decorations have been scalable. You can now scale personal decorations too. From dojos to orbiters, Tenno can customize decoration sizes. So that's what the scalability is referring to. Introducing the Arrival Gate. You now control where Tenno spawn in your dojo. Place the Arrival Gate and Tenno will appear in that very spot when they visit. Dojos without an Arrival Gate will default to the current spawn system. I guess so. You could have big... I guess you could have, like, really big drones and really tiny drones, probably. We are looking forward to launching Basic Mode. Yas, let me be a basic! Advanced Mode, new controller bindings. I don't care about that, sorry. Rotating decoration previews, universal scaling. This is... Okay. This is something that, like, Saskia would probably care about. But, like, me, I'm like... Let me just play with my keyboard and mouse. Let me just play with my keyboard and mouse. Honestly, I'm super excited about that because I could make everyone spawn in our derelict rooms, but then at the same time it'd be awful because it's on the bottom of our dojo and y'all know how confusing it is, so we'll probably leave it as is.